Howdy folks, big news for Audi fans out there, especially if you like pickup trucks or sports vehicles or off-roaders, because you're getting everything all in one and it's electrified and it is a concept. Now for those of you who have been paying attention, Audi has been doing several concepts over the past few years with the name Sphere in them. So recently we saw the Urban Sphere, the Grand Sphere, the Sky Sphere, and this vehicle, the Activesphere. Why is this an important vehicle for Audi? Well, it's pretty interesting when you look at its configuration. And we'll talk about its power numbers and its battery size and everything in just a moment. But I think the big story right now is, why are they calling it Activesphere? Well, the sphere part, that's their own jargon for high-tech interior components that surround the person and blah, 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 blah. But the active part, now that is the interesting part, because they have a rear section that actually converts from a hatch to essentially a pickup bed. And that has people like Andrei Smirnov absolutely freaking out, because it sort of kind of is a little bit of a pickup truck. Now, let me explain what we got going on here. First of all, that is called a sports back, and the back part of it on the top is known as the active back, and it is a variable rear architecture. That's what they're calling it from Audi. And that allows you to put in a couple e-bikes or other active material, even some lumber. And judging by the looks of that hatch area, once it's converted into a bed, it looks like it's about 5 feet long when the tailgate is down, maybe just a hair under that. So it could be useful for certain things. Now, this whole system is automatic. Essentially, with the push of a button, a panel will slide forward onto the top of the vehicle. That panel used to be part of your hatch. And then the seats in the rear will fold down. Now, there's 2 seats in the back, so the car can hold up to 4 people. But once those fold down, obviously you're out of luck if you need to have somebody sitting in the back seat. Once those back seats fold down, there is a bulkhead that forms behind the front driver and passenger seat, and essentially you have that much space to put items in. Now, Audi was very careful to point out that they actually have lash points or tie downs for e-bikes. And you can clearly see in one of these images that the bikes fit in special slots, and then they have tie downs to hold them down in the back of the vehicle. On top of that, there's more, because let's say you have to use that space and at the same time you want to carry skis. Well, they have an integrated active rack on the top that's integrated in terms of lines that you can see going across the roof, which in turn can hold some sort of rack system in that slot space. Okay, so you have 2 different forms of utility in this vehicle. Now let's talk about the vehicle itself. According to Audi, this is actually pretty impressive in terms of its size. And if you think about it in terms of a Audi A7, A6, in terms of its length, you'd be pretty close, although it's a lot wider. It's about 6 inches wider than a current model Audi A7. It has a PPE system. That means Premium Platform Electric System. They're not asking for loans. That's an inside joke. So this system puts out a total of 325 kilowatts or 435 horsepower, and system torque is 720 Newton meters or 531 pound-feet of torque. That is split between 2 electric motors, one for the front, one for the rear axle. So we are talking about a quattro system, although they do not specify what type of quattro system this will be. As many of you know, quattro doesn't necessarily mean one type of all-wheel drive system for Audi. Now, they say it has an 800-volt architecture and a 100 kilowatt-hour battery, they say approximately. Now, what's interesting about this setup is that it is built to sit in between the front and rear axle, essentially underneath the passenger quarters. So it's like a skateboard platform that fits in between. Now let's talk about some of these actual dimensions. Off-road, it's an approach angle is 18 degrees. That is not too bad. Departure angle is 28.1 degrees. and it can be lifted with its suspension system, which is active, up to 8.2 inches of ground clearance. They say it has 22-inch wheels, which, judging by these images, certainly looks like they are. But they are hooked up to larger, more dynamic style rubber, which is built for all surfaces. But according to Audi, this is an off-road vehicle, so it is built to actually go off-road. Now, for those of you who doubt this, keep in mind that Audi did pioneer a lot of all-wheel drive systems. They've done some fantastic things with World Rally, and recently they've done some interesting things when it comes to the Dakar Rally. And I suspect that they are going to be a force to be reckoned with in the very near future. All right, so let's talk about the other components of this vehicle. What makes it the sphere, the Activesphere? The sphere part, this is a new form of infotainment system that Audi is pioneering and beginning to toy with this to the point to where I think they're getting close to production of some sort of system that's like this. Let me explain how the system works. You essentially are wearing glasses as opposed to big old goggles like you used to do with VR, virtual reality. This is known as augmented reality, and you're using something that are basically sunglasses, which you can see pictured here. Now, these sunglasses, well, they work in tandem with the system that allows you to control certain components and also see certain bits of information that might be pertinent to what you're doing. So for instance, if you're off-roading, you'll get a topographical view of where you're off-roading that'll be projected into your glasses when you look a certain direction, which can help you off-road. But there's more, because this same system can also be used with infotainment. So it's interesting because what they decided to do is rather than have a standard head unit for, radio and, all that other stuff, no, what you will actually do with this system is that you'll go and look at a speaker, and that's where you're going to touch and virtually turn a knob and or volume control thing. I guess in the air, it's not a knob, it's almost a knob, whatever. Anyway, you would rotate, and then that's how you turn up your volume or your gain or whatever, or change stations. You could do all that there. If you wanted to change the temperature in the car or the fan speed, you would look over at the grill or one of the grills for the ducting system, so air conditioning or heating. You'd find one of those ducts, and right when you would turn your head and look at it, the image would actually come across and overlay, and it would allow you to change the temperature or airspeed from that system. And so think about that in larger terms, what this vehicle can do, not only off-road, where you can choose different types of directions for terrain, and you're using this with your navigation system, and you're able to point or gesture and tell it, I want to go over here, I want to go look over there. This whole thing works all together with their Sphere system. And they're calling it the Audi Dimensions / Traveling Worlds. Yes, I couldn't remember that because it's kind of an interesting way of looking at it. Now, one final component of this vehicle that you guys should keep in mind is that as cool as it is, and it really does look pretty cool, it is not for production. There are no announcements for any of these Sphere concepts to go into production. However, you can look at a lot of the technology and say, okay, some of this is what Audi's looking to implement in the future. We sincerely hope that they use this sports back and active back design in the future, because that would really be killing a lot of birds with one stone. There's a lot of people out there who do not want to own a pickup truck, but every once in a while, they could really use the utility of being able to open up the entire back section to load things in. And people have experimented with that constantly, with vehicles like the Ford Maverick and the Hyundai Santa Cruz starting to become more and more popular. Small beds are becoming more in vogue. As such, it's logical to assume that there may be some people out there who will find this useful. On top of the fact that this is an extremely powerful off-road electric vehicle. By the way, you might be wondering about the range, which I did forget to mention. Well, that total range is 372 miles or 600 kilometers, according to Audi. Once again, all this is based on some speculation of this vehicle actually becoming something in production. One final note that I wanted to throw in there, and that is based on the actual looks of the vehicle. It certainly does look like something that could be produced. If you look at the doors, they are clamshell style, so suicide doors in the back and proper opening doors in the front, something that is once again becoming more in vogue. The interior itself, which Audi calls minimalist, is frankly built for only 4 people, and if you're looking for maximum utility, perhaps 5 people would make more sense, at least a seat in the middle for a 5th person. Obviously, this type of setup is, once again, a concept, but hopefully in the future we'll get something like this or something maybe similar in an actual production vehicle. Wouldn't that be great? See you later, guys. Thanks for joining me.